To our sixth and final session on our nuts and bolts journey. The first part of tonight, we have Marina Hatsopoulos, who's going to talk to you about common mistakes. I looked at her deck a little earlier today, and I realized I've made pretty much all of those mistakes. So you should pay attention. uh, you learn something about people at the strangest moments. I just found out that Marina is on the board of Berklee College of Music, and she's going to be leaving right at halftime of the session because she has to get ready to fly to LA to go to the Grammys tomorrow. So I'm blown away. Will we see you on TV there? Hopefully. Okay. So, Marina Hatsopoulos.
Thank you. Great to be here. This is much more interesting and much more engaging if you're a part of the conversation. So I'm going to prompt you with some questions, but also just raise your hand if you have any questions or if you have any comments. So I'll give you my story first. I got my bachelor's in pure math and music from Brown. I learned how to think. It was great. Those were my passions. But I really had always in my mind that I wanted to do a tech startup because my dad was an entrepreneur, and so I kind of wanted to, it was just on my mind, like someday I would want to do that. And so I felt like I needed some business experience. So when I graduated Brown, I went to work at Chase Manhattan Bank in New York for the oil and gas industry. There was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. There was a one-year training program. I learned some essential skills that I think are really useful no matter what you do. I learned selling, and you will always need to sell no matter what your job. Selling is critical. I learned how to negotiate, which is a very useful skill if you ever get married, but also just in general in life. It's good to know how to negotiate. And I learned basic accounting, and if you do a startup, you should learn some very basic accounting so you understand how to keep score. But after working at Chase for a little bit, I felt like I wanted to get closer to like actually making a tangible product. So I went to work at Thermo Electron, and I was working in mergers and acquisitions for some of their smaller divisions. And it was kind of a rude awakening because I thought at Chase, if you understand the financials of a business, you know everything you need to know about the business. And that is definitely not the case if you are in a small $10 or $20 million division looking to make an acquisition of another smaller startup. You're really not assessing the financials, you're assessing the technology. And I realized I had a gaping hole in my education and that I needed to fill. So I left and went to MIT and got my master's in mechanical engineering. And that was amazing. It like opened my eyes to this whole physical world and how things worked. And my goal was not to be an engineer. My goal was to be able to communicate with engineers and manage engineers one day in my own startup. Excuse me. So I then looked kind of at my toolkit. What did I have? I knew how to sell. I knew how to negotiate. I knew accounting. I had some business experience. I had some banking experience. And I could speak the language of technology. What I was missing was management experience. I had never managed people before. So I tried to get a job in management. And I was shot down, because they said I didn't have management experience. Well, how was I supposed to get management experience if I didn't have it? And they didn't understand why I had a master's in engineering. I should have had an MBA if I wanted management experience. And the people who were interested in hiring me wanted me in an engineering role, but that wasn't my goal. So I was caught in a catch-22. But let's set my story aside for a moment, and we'll get back to it later. So, yeah, absolutely. No worries. when we're talking about commercializing deep tech, there are a bunch of steps that have to happen. And a lot of this is iterative, but at any rate, it all fundamentally starts with research. And that often happens in a university setting like MIT. And researchers have diverse career options. They might want to continue to pursue their research in an academic environment, or they might want to go and work in a corporate environment, or they may want to do a startup. And I want to talk very briefly about these options because often the founder of a startup is in the wrong role. You want to assess your skills, your experience, your interests, and your talents to see what role you should be. It could be CEO of a startup, or it could be CTO. Maybe you like to lead the technology, but not so much manage the people and the business side. But as a startup starts and as it grows, it's really important to have the right people in the right roles. And this will change over time. But as this changes, it may require setting aside your ego, because a lot of times the CEO that is very good at the startup stage is not so good as the company grows and needs to step aside for the good of the business. The startup CEO loves leading. So this is somebody who likes autonomy, is an independent thinker, wants freedom, is typically an extroverted self-starter, is a hard driver, willing to take risks, willing to make decisions with incomplete information, and really likes to feel their tangible impact. The job is never done, and they're okay with mess, with imperfection, and with a lot of rejection and failure. So this is sort of the profile of a CEO. The startup CTO loves technology. And so this is a person who really wants to push the technology forward, likes to make the decisions related to the technology, and is willing to live with the limited resources of a startup, and willing to make decisions without enough information. A startup early employee likes wearing lots of hats. So typically in a startup, there are too many things to get done and not enough people to do them. So that early employee is comfortable doing things they've never done before, taking on one task, then taking on a totally different responsibility, working with limited resources. The only downside on the experience of an early employee is that a lot of it depends on the CEO of a startup. Whereas in a large corporate environment, you might experience best practices. In a startup, your experience generally depends a lot on that CEO. So when you're considering your career options as a researcher, you want to consider your goals and the skills that you will need to reach those goals. And most importantly, what does success mean to you? Are you looking to make money? Are you looking for recognition? Are you looking to make impact? Is there some specific problem you want to solve? What excites you? And don't let your parents decide for you. You really need to do some soul searching and figure this out for yourself. And I've worked with people in startups that you could see that ultimately they didn't have that risk-taking thing that startup people have. And ultimately, they were a better fit for a corporate environment. So just because a lot of other people are doing startups doesn't mean startups are for everyone. They're not. And so you have to kind of be true to yourself. So it all starts with research, and research leads to innovation. There's an innovative scientific discovery made in the lab, and there's this unique technology that enables product differentiation. So I'm going to talk to you about my story, which was in 3D printing. It was invented here at MIT by Professor Ellie Sachs. It's a powder-based technology, and I'll talk to you about it more as the story goes along. So the next step is intellectual property, and this is not just patents. Everyone knows about patents. Patents are very important because a lot of times there's an invention that might take years to develop, but once it's developed, it can be very easy to copy. And so this is a protection. It's a deal that you make with the government where you will disclose everything you know about this new invention, And in exchange, you get exclusivity for 20 years, and it blocks the competition. And I can tell you in our case, this was very effective, having the MIT patents for 20 years, because it took us a very long time to develop the technology, and that protected us from large competitors who came out as soon as those MIT patents expired. But beyond patents, there's also trade secrets. And so this is very specific information. So I'll give you an example. For Z Corp, we had powder materials in our 3D printers, and we disclosed in the patents they should be such and such a size. We gave a range, and this is the material. But we did not disclose the actual brand name. And it turns out the brand of fiber that we used in our powder materials actually made a difference. So this was a trade secret, something we kept to ourselves, and it allowed us to prevent competition as long as we could retain that secret. Trade secrets are only protected as long as you can keep them a secret. Once it's out in the market, it's out in the market. So it's a very different situation than patents. And then the final IP is like know-how. So this is practical knowledge, little things you know about how your process works that others, it would take them time to figure out. And it might be hard to codify. And so this is good to be aware of and to make sure that you try to protect it as much as you can. One mistake that researchers make is that they publish before they patent. There's a lot of merit given to publishing. It gives you credibility, status. It's an indicator of innovation, and that's all good. You should definitely publish. That's all great, but wait until after you patent. Even being one-on-one in a quiet room with another individual who has not signed a non-disclosure agreement, that is a public disclosure. And so you want to be very careful about that, because even if they don't tell anybody in the world, technically that is a public disclosure and you can no longer patent your invention. Yes?
Yesterday we talked about a case where the inventor was cautious of participating in a hackathon or an accelerator.
Yes.
How do you go about balancing sort of how much you share and disclose, particularly when you have a trade secret, but you also want to drum up demand by investors?
Yes. So this is a great question, and I'll talk about it a little bit later also. So I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is that they want to guard their secrets so much that they're not out talking to the market. And it is very important to get out there and be talking to people. And so what you need to do is distinguish between the problem you're solving and how you're solving it. The how you're solving it, you retain as a secret. But the problem you're solving, you should be very open about and try to get feedback from the marketplace as to what their problems are, the specific problems. You're trying to get information. So you have to share a little information about the problem you're working on, but you don't have to share any of the secrets that you would divulge in a patent. So my career hit a dead end. As I mentioned, I was in this catch-22. I needed management experience. Nobody would give it to me. Nobody would hire me. So in desperation, I went back to my thesis advisor here at MIT, Woody Flowers, who was an amazing man. And I asked him for his advice, and he said that I should go to the Technology Licensing Office. So the Technology Licensing Office patents MIT inventions. These are inventions that are made by the professors and by the students, and then they look to commercialize them. So they license to companies and to individuals to commercialize these inventions. They now have over 4,000 active US patents, and they have about 2,000 license agreements with companies and individuals, and they're generating over $60 million in licensing revenue. So it's a very big operation, and over 600 startups have come out of the Technology Licensing Office. So you can see they're very effective at doing what they are doing. In my very first meeting at the licensing office, they said our #1 goal is to disseminate MIT technology. Our #2 goal is to make money, but the #1 is to disseminate MIT technology, and that's what they do, and they lived by that. This was amazing to me because I was introduced to these amazing new technologies with tremendous amount of differentiation that they were looking to commercialize. And the next step in the process is proof of principle. And this was through the Technology Licensing Office. I was introduced to Jim Brett and Tim Anderson, two of the most creative thinkers I have ever met in my life. They were in Building 20, which is now the Stata Center, and they were very proud MIT dumpster divers. So I was like, what is that? Excuse me? And they said, oh, we dive into dumpsters, but not just any dumpsters, MIT dumpsters, because MIT dumpsters have great stuff in them. And Jim was getting his PhD here at MIT in the 3D printing lab, and Tim was working on the project as a technician. In their lab, which smelled like garlic tea and canned fish, they had a robotic painting machine that they had built, and they had a rocking chair that was controlled by old 1970s electronics that they had found in the dumpster. They also had tiny Tim heads that they had cast in chocolate and in wax that were all over the lab. So it was kind of crazy. I didn't know quite what to do with these guys. I'd never met anybody quite like them. But they were really interesting. What they had done, they were working on the project at MIT. And at MIT, Professor Ellie Sachs was trying to develop a machine that they could use to send spare parts to outer space. So instead of sending spare parts to outer space if you needed them, what you would do is send a 3D printer and a bag of powder, and you would be able to 3D print whatever parts you needed. So they were trying to make parts out of metal and ceramic, and they were designing their own print heads to bind these powders together. This is a very, very difficult technical problem. Tim and Jim were working on it. The print heads were always breaking down. They were super frustrated with it. It was very, very expensive to repair these print heads. And so out of their frustration, and this shows you their creative thinking, they flipped the technical problem on its head. They said, instead of designing a print head around a given powder material system, let's design a powder material system, design it around an off-the-shelf Hewlett-Packard paper print head. So they went to Staples, they bought a paper printer, they butchered it, and they had it print on powder. If you have ever left your cereal bowl overnight, you know that cornstarch, sugar, it all turns hard as a rock by morning, right? And so they created a powder system of sugar, starch, cellulose fibers, and they proved that an HP printhead printing ink, which is essentially water, onto this powder could fabricate a 3D printed prototype. So it was a crazy idea, but what it did is it leveraged the millions and millions of dollars of research and development that had gone into that little printhead, plus the scale of production to produce this printhead that they could sell off the shelf for $50. So now Tim and Jim could do materials research, and if it ruined the printhead, they could just toss it and put on another printhead. So this was an incredible discovery that they made, and it enabled fast, cheap prototyping. This is their proof of principle. It was not pretty, and it was actually worse than this looked because it actually required 2 computers, and it required a human to stand in front of it and pour the powder every layer, layer by layer by layer. So it was a cumbersome process. It was messy. There was powder all over the place. But they proved the concept. And that's the point of a proof of principle, is you need an early prototype to prove the science. It's de-risking your core technology to get maybe your first friends and family to invest or your first angel investor. The next step to commercialization is finding product market fit. So deep tech startups all start with technology, but not all technology becomes a deep tech startup. So what you have in a deep tech startup, you are starting with technology, and that's basically a solution. and now you're looking for a market, which is a problem to solve. And that sounds really simple, but it's not always obvious what problem can be solved with your technology. And this is where a lot of startups fail, and it takes a tremendous amount of time to find out where that sweet spot is. So one mistake I see is that startups copy the market leader. So they find something that they can kind of do, and they develop their technology to get to the same place as the market leader. That's not really what you want to do. What you want to do is create a new market, because that's the only place you have an advantage. Large incumbents have every other advantage. They have sales in place. They have marketing in place. They have a distribution network in place. They have manufacturing in place. They have capital. They have employees. They have systems. They have processes. They have a name in the marketplace. You don't have any of that. When you're doing a startup, you've got nothing but your passion and being nimble. And being nimble is the only advantage that you have. And that's why you want to create a new market, because large companies are notoriously bad at creating new markets. They know that. They're aware of that. And part of the reason is because they are really good at doing what they do, and they don't have a process in place to do something new and different. It doesn't fit into their process. So you want to use that to your advantage and find a hole in the market. Now, there might be a larger market that exists. Like in our case, rapid prototyping existed, but there was a huge hole on the low end of the market. So when you're thinking about doing your startup, you want to think about two concurrent paths. You've got the technology or the product development on the one side, and your market development on the other side. And these are not working independently at all. You need to iterate. So both paths are driven by this intellectual property that you've generated and the technology differentiation that that intellectual property enables. And the one will speak to the other. So you go to the market with your technology and you say, what do you think about this? And the market says, more like that. Then you go back to the drawing board technically. Can we do this? Well, we can't do exactly that, but we can do this. So this is an iterative process. Figuring this out, their answer is not in a book, it's not on the internet. Even ChatGPT might come up with some ideas, and you should definitely give it a shot, but probably that's not where the answer is. What you need to do is articulate what is special, what's different due to your intellectual property, identify possible markets. There, ChatGPT can be very helpful. And Orbit AI, I don't know if you've talked about that this week, is really interesting at helping you out on that. Identify possible markets, create a prototype or a storyboard, go to your customers, to possible customers, interview them, test out their feedback. How do they react to it? What do they want? Get feedback from them, then go back. This information will direct the technology development. So this is an iterative process. It's not something that you're going to figure out one day, aha, now I have the answer, and then it's done. This will, as the technology develops, you'll reach a roadblock, and you'll say, oh, we can't do it. We thought we could do this, but we can't, but we can do this. Or, oh my God, we discovered this new cool thing that we had no idea we could do. Let's go back to the market. Maybe that's more interesting than what we had originally planned on. So technology development is a process. You want to run tests to try the different paths without investing too much. So you don't want to have to build your entire finished product to de-risk the technology. You want to build little modules that you can test and de-risk whatever is the highest area of risk. And create a prototype that is minimally functional to get some feedback from the customer. Market development is also a process. So you want to consider a wide range of industries. What problem could your technology solve? Design experiments to de-risk the market. There are many ways you can experiment. And speak with experts in the market and with potential customers to get their feedback to your ideas. And really listen closely and take a lot of notes, because what you'll find is you've got an idea in your head they're saying something slightly different, and you're going to kind of dismiss them to try to fit their square peg into your round hole. Take notes, take copious notes, because at some point when 20 people tell you the same thing, you may start thinking, oh, wait, what did that first guy say? I think he said something similar. And you're going to want to go back and reread those notes, and you're going to view them very differently than you did the first time. So listening is really important, and being nimble and open to change when you get new information. When you're doing a startup, you are making many, many decisions with incomplete information. It feels like you're living in a fog. And so it's really important when you get new information to be open to that and to go back and make your old decisions again, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's just part of the process because you are making these decisions without enough information. But be open to new information so you can make those decisions again. So an example is the Z Corp, my company's name was Z Corp, early market ideas. So we were looking at architecture because I had done some renovations in the Back Bay. So to me, that would be so cool, and industrial design. It turns out our technology was not a great fit, and that ended up being like 2% of our market. What we learned was that both architectural firms and industrial design firms, at that time, they were not on 3D CAD, they did not have a lot of money, and they really cared a lot about surface finish. And our parts did not have great surface finish because of our technology. It had a lot of advantages, but not that. Startups are always pivoting. The more innovative what you're doing is, the more unknowns there are. And you're making these decisions without enough information, with no playbook to follow. You can't copy someone else. You're in uncharted waters. So you have to try a lot of things. Don't get wedded to anything too hard. And as you get new information, be willing to pivot. One mistake I see to the question that we had earlier was staying stealth in the lab comfort zone. It's always hard to talk to customers. You don't even know where to begin. You don't even know how to find a customer. How do you do that? It's really hard. It's difficult. It's uncomfortable. But you have to do it. You need to understand how painful is the problem. How big is the market opportunity? And you need to start charting the competitive landscape. What are customers doing today? What are the problems with that solution? Get feedback on your idea. You have much more to gain than to lose by talking to people. One example I'll give is I went to a trade show very early on, before we were ready to launch the machine, and I took our parts, and these are some of our early parts, and I showed them to potential customers at the trade show. And they said pretty consistently, those are really crappy parts. And I said, okay, yes, they are kind of crappy, but number one, we're going to improve it. This is really early days in our technology. We haven't launched the product yet. I just wanted to get your feedback. And number two, what if I told you you could get this part in half an hour? Then they stopped. Well, whoa, wait a second. At that time, the technologies were super expensive and cumbersome, so they were generally operated by service bureaus, which meant you had to send the CAD file, they would send it back with a quote, there was some file repair that needed to be done, and then you'd have to wait maybe a week to get your part. So this idea that you could have a part in your hand in like half an hour, maybe 3 hours, was radical. So now suddenly our parts weren't looking so crappy. And those conversations are what led us to start to build a narrative around how we were unique in the marketplace. So what you want to do is select a beachhead market. This is a small market that is going to be easy to reach. The customer is well funded. They have a problem that they want to solve. They're aware of their problem. And there's not huge entrenched competition. Having a little bit of competition is okay if the companies are not too big. If it's Google and Amazon, that's not so good. Finding your customer is a massive effort. You have to kiss a lot of frogs. Rejection is learning. So never let a rejection go to waste. Make sure you're learning from that and using that information to re-steer. Talking is always going to be more valuable than online research. Online research can only tell you so much, and it's always amazing. You go to a trade show and you walk around and you get so much information, and you can't predict the value of that information until you go there. The next step is start, yes?
About really learning from those rejections, and
Yes.
you know, obviously a no at face value is a no, and it's tough to. Is it like that customer? Is it like what is? How do you read deeper and get the true data that's going to unlock the next path or where you should go?
So the question is, how do you get value from a customer conversation that doesn't go well? So, so you really want to push hard, because if you thought they were going to be a good customer and you thought that was the fit and they're not, you want to understand why not. Is this customer an outlier? Are they not the norm for some reason? What is not resonating about your solution? What are they doing today? Do they have a different profile? Maybe they have access to a lot more capital than your typical customer, and so they have access to a solution that most customers don't have, or they're not price sensitive. You want to dig deep to understand why they don't fit, and the more conversations you have, the smarter you'll be about diving deep on those questions to understand why your hypothesis may or may not be correct. So, any other questions? Yes, another question.
So in the very early stages, before you even know what your market is, you have to talk to a lot of people to try to find out whether you're solving their problem. Do you have any technical advice on how to get people to want to talk to you, you know, when you don't even have like a polished product, you're not even sure what you're doing?
Yes, so the question is, how do you get people to talk to you when you don't have a polished product and you really don't know a lot? I mean, trust me, I did not know anything about 3D CAD or rapid prototyping, which is what it was called at the time. People are amazing. Like, people really like to help. They really like to spread their wisdom. And you'd be amazed. I find a very good place to go is like a trade show, because people are already there. They're already there. They're physically there, and they've got nothing better to do. And so especially salespeople love to talk, but going and just introducing yourself, especially if you're a student, or if you just graduated, play the student card. People love that. They love to help students. And then just say, like, I just graduated MIT and I'm thinking about doing a startup in this area. I'd love to get your thoughts. Do you have 5 minutes? And it's amazing. People really do like to help. And especially if you're serious about it and you're like taking notes and really listening to what they're saying and really asking good questions. And the more that continues, they get engaged and they really want to share. So it's much harder if you're not in person. It's much harder to cold call someone and get them to talk to you. So you want to find either like an in-person situation, which is much easier, or a warm introduction. And that's where you need to use your network. And don't be shy about using your network. Ask your professors, ask your fellow students, ask people you've worked with, ask your parents, ask your childhood friends. I used to go to cocktail parties and people would say, oh, hey, what are you doing? And I would ask them, like, do you know anyone, blah, 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 blah. And those connections are incredibly valuable. And if someone knows someone, they're going to talk to you. If they are friends with Joe, and they'll take that time. Any other questions? No? Okay. So why create a startup? Who can tell me? Tell me why you are thinking about creating a startup. What's your motivation? There's no wrong answer. Yes?
Passionate about solving a problem that's unmet need right now?
Passion about solving a problem. So a specific problem that you've identified and you want to solve it. That's like a classic reason for starting a startup, a very good reason for starting a startup. What other reasons? Is that the only reason to do a startup? Come on. What? Because it's fun. Well, that's a good one. Because it's fun. It is fun. It's a lot of hard work, too. All right. Well, there are a lot of reasons. One is a passion for a particular technology. So a lot of times a researcher just loves their technology. Jim and Tim loved their 3D printer. They loved it. They wanted to spend more time with it. They wanted to see it out in the market and see other people using it. They loved it. Another is solving a specific problem, as we talked about, or solving any problem. And that was kind of where I was. Like, there wasn't a specific problem I wanted to solve, but I liked this idea of solving the problem and kind of making the world a better place. The other, and this also was my motivation, was independence. Not having a boss, doing your own thing, being a self-starter, not having someone telling you what to do. Another is the sense of teamwork and community that you get in a startup. And the last is making money. And interestingly, I think a lot of people expect to make money and want to make money, and maybe that's like a big driver for them in doing a startup. But I have interviewed a lot of exited entrepreneurs who made a lot of money in their startup at the time of exit. And at the end of the day, it was really about impact. And that's why several of them actually bought back their startups because the acquiring company didn't do a good job with the startup. And even though the entrepreneur had already made as much money as they wanted to make, they saw their startup floundering within this larger company, and they wanted to go back and save it so that they could have impact. And so I found that really, really interesting, that an exited entrepreneur who's made all the money that they want to make would go back and buy back their startup and go back into the grind to do it again because they wanted to have impact. One mistake is expecting a quick flip. So deep tech commercialization takes time. Expect 10 years. This is not something you're going to sell to Google next year. It demands focus and commitment, and you really shouldn't do something that you don't believe in. It should be consistent with your values, with your interests, with your talents, with your experience. One other mistake is that the professor won't hand it over, or that the researcher thinks they can do it on Saturdays. Entrepreneurship is not a part-time job. Researchers need entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs need researchers. You need the business side, you need the technology side. As I talked about, you've got these two developments that are happening at the same time, technology and market. So you've got to make sure you're putting adequate resources on both sides of that equation. Another mistake is solo trekking. Finding co-founders is not easy, but it's really important and greatly improves your chance of success. So you want to assess your own strengths and weaknesses. You don't want to hire someone in your own image. You want to hire somebody very different from you. This is our founding team. So Jim Brett is the first one on the left, Walter Bornhorst, myself, and Tim Anderson. And we were all so different. We were coming at every problem from completely different experiences. And I believe, we used to argue like crazy, but I think it was those arguments that led us to better decision making because we were all coming at it from a different perspective. So you want to look at what skills and experience are you missing and who can you hire to fill in that hole. Define the perfect profile and then use the network that I just talked about. Ask everyone you know, do you know someone like this? So disruptions in the market create startup opportunity for new markets. So if I said to you, you want to create a new market, how do you create a new market? Well, if there's a disruption, that can often lead to a new market creation. So it might be new regulations that have been created or old regulations that have been removed. It can be demographic changes in the marketplace or new enabling technologies. So I'll give you an example with Z Corporation. There were several key enabling technologies that allowed us to succeed. One was there was a shift from the workstation, so these are expensive Silicon Graphics workstations, to the PC. Both the PC got more powerful and it got less expensive. So you went from a 3D CAD system requiring a workstation that cost $20,000 to $50,000 to needing just an IBM laptop for $4,000. And 3D CAD software went from needing a PTC installation of like $20,000 to getting SolidWorks, an MIT startup. The founder, John Hirschtick, was on our board. So down to $4,000. So all of a sudden, 3D CAD was now enabled to a much, much bigger market. And that was critical for our success because without 3D CAD, you can't 3D print. So that was an enabling technology that grew our market. But you want to beware disruptions in the market that are transient, like COVID. I saw a lot of startups come out of COVID, and that's all fine as long as you're investing a small enough amount that you can still generate a return on that investment when that market disappears. And you know, as we all saw, a lot of, I mean, COVID is just not a part of our life. So you might have made money if you had invested a small amount, but it isn't something that you want to go invest $500 million in because that market went away. Your startup name is very important. You want to create a brand and have a name fit your organization as it evolves, and you want to avoid legal issues. So what makes a good name? Does anyone have any ideas? Yes?
A name that's not tied to anything else that anyone has preconceptions about.
A name that's not tied to anything else, that's unique to you. Yes, what else?
Easy to spell.
Easy to spell, thank you. Easy to spell. You'd be amazed how many startup names are not easy to spell. Thank you. There was another one, yes.
You can remember it.
That you can remember it, yes. That's very important. You want a name that's easy to remember. You guys are so on target here. I'm going to show you examples that are such names that I think do not meet that criteria, let's say. So one mistake is a name is hard to spell or pronounce. So here are some examples. Spectrum. If I said I'm Marina from Spectrum, where does that H come from? Who would know to put that H there? Yota, I don't know how to spell that. I don't know how to pronounce that. ASAP Papa, like I'm not sure. These are real names. I don't know the civil, I guess, how to pronounce that. And then DKJC Ventures, how am I going to remember that? Like XPQR, like what is that? Another mistake is that a name is a very common word. So the web search is critical. You need something that's easy to spell, easy to type, but also should not bring up a million other things. So do not use a broadly descriptive name like Venture Forum. If you type Venture Forum, you're going to get a million things. You want a website that's available. So do an online search, try to get the .com site. If there are others that have different extensions, make sure it's not competitive with what you're doing. And then, yeah. You want evocative words can work really well. So these are words that are not actual words, but they're evocative of something. So iRobot, I love iRobot. I think it's a great company name. That is a literature reference. And it tells you robot, but it's also unique. If you type iRobot, you're only going to get iRobot. You're not going to get anything else. These other ones, Biogen, Datadog, Formlabs, Bevy. Bevy is these things that have sparkling water with different flavors. These are, you kind of get a sense for like what space these companies are in, if not exactly what they do, but you kind of know what space they're in. So I think these are all really good names. They're easy to spell, they're easy to say, and they're unique. If you type them, you're not going to get a million other things. So moving on, the 3D printing market was ripe for disruption. So at the time that we were founding the company, the rapid prototyping equipment was very large lab equipment, very difficult to use, used toxic materials, expensive, $100,000 to $1 million. And those companies were chasing accuracy, getting more and more expensive, more difficult to use. And what they had done, it was classic case where they had moved up market and left a hole in the market on the low end. So we had a great plan for disrupting the market. We were going to make an office-compatible 3D printer that was easy to use, inexpensive. We were going to sell it for $20,000, and we were going to launch it within 2 years, after 2 years of development. So that was our plan. It was a great plan. We thought it was a great plan. But then 1 year in, there was a trade show. Our plan was threatened. There was a trade show that almost killed us. 2 large companies, public companies in the high-end rapid prototyping space announced that they were going to release office-compatible 3D printers. So we went to the trade show. We thought maybe we'd have to fold the company, but we went and did our market research and got a lot of data collection. As I say, salespeople love to talk, so you just go. We didn't lie about who we were. We said, oh, we're out of MIT, we're doing a 3D printing startup, whatever. They dismissed us, and they told us everything. So what we learned was that they were going to sell their equipment for $60,000. We saw their parts. They were stronger than ours. They were prettier than ours, but they were under glass. There were like 2 parts under glass. And what we discovered was that their processes were more expensive, and more significantly, they were very slow, and that's why they only had a couple of parts. We were 10 times faster and 10% of the cost. So now we were starting to feel like we were onto something. So we went back and had a board meeting, and we decided if we're 10 times faster and 10% of the cost, why should we price it at $20,000? If they're pricing it at $60,000, let's price it at $60,000. We can always lower it, and always keep that in mind. It's very easy to lower your price. It's very hard to raise your price. Customers get really mad if you try to raise your price. So our thought was, well, we can always reduce it in a couple months. We'll reduce the price. It turned out $60,000 was a sweet spot in the market, and we kept a product at that $60,000 price point for 10 years. It was a very easy place to get approval, and it actually saved us as a company because it was much more expensive than we expected to sell and market and manufacture our product. So a mistake is entering a too crowded market. On the one hand, competition can educate the market, and so it wasn't so bad having these competitors because then we could say we are better, faster, cheaper. But you don't want competition from huge incumbents. They have capital, they have everything. So look at who is well positioned in terms of customers or technology. Why haven't they done it already? What will keep them from entering the market? If you prove your market and you're successful, what's going to keep someone else from copying you and doing exactly what you're doing? Who has the unfair advantage? Do you or do they? So you want to be differentiating. You want to differentiate so you can sell at a premium price, learn what's out there, use IP to do something better, and use the state of the art as your starting point, not your end point. Product differentiation is critical, but you don't need to be better at everything. You only need to be better at something that really matters to the customer. So this is a chart that I built. I actually had this chart behind my desk at the company. And what you see is we were pricing it the same as the competition. Our parts were crappy. Our strength was crappy. But we were really, really fast. And our customers cared about that. That really mattered to them. So we weren't going to win every sale, and we weren't going to be used for every prototype that was built in the marketplace, but we were going to be used for a lot of them. And so our sales process became, yes, you can use another technology that's more expensive and slower later in your design process. But early in the design process, you can make 10 or 20 or 50 of our prototypes to get a feel for the product that you're making. The next step to commercialization is team. Team and culture are critical to your success. Smart, well-functioning teams can navigate whatever problems come at them, and a healthy culture drives success. So forget what you see on TV with these mean bosses that are like, you know, have the whip out. That's not how it works. You want to be collaborative. On the other hand, arguing, I think, is extremely healthy. And I'm very proud of the culture we had at Z Corp. We used to argue a lot. And I think that allowed us to reach better decisions. And everyone had a voice at the company, even the, you know, any employee at any level could voice their opinion and they would be heard. The startup culture and mindset is to move fast, take risks, do things that you've never done before, and that's okay. Make decisions without enough information. Think out of the box. Don't do things just because they've always been done a certain way. Do them another way. Break the norms, just do it, and work collaboratively as a team. Culture is so important. When JetBlue started, they wouldn't hire anybody from the airline industry because they felt that that industry had such an unhealthy culture. And I believe to this day, I'm a huge JetBlue fan. I believe you feel it at JetBlue. When you're on the planes, you feel that culture. It's very different than being on, I won't name any other airlines. But another mistake is avoiding conflict. So avoiding decisions, difficult decisions, usually makes the problem worse. You want to encourage a lot of diverse opinions, make the tough decisions that you need to make, and learn to negotiate. A lot of times people are just uncomfortable. They want everyone to like them. You kind of have to get over that, and you have to face the tough choices, and you'll find life will become much easier after you just grind through that. But don't make your employees cry like my friend did. That's not what I'm saying. There's a way to do this without making your employees cry. One mistake is hiring friends. So you want diversity of education, of interests, of talents, of experience. Leverage your network. Ask your friends for connections, but don't hire anybody you can't fire, because if you hire your friend and you need to fire them, you're going to lose a friend. And there's no reason. You want your friends and your family to be where you go to complain about work. You don't want to be with them at work causing you the problems that you want to complain about. Empower your stars. Yes, there's a question.
Does that also apply to the co-founder? Because I feel that usually for co-founders it's more like you hire whoever you get along better with.
So the question is about co-founders. Does this apply to co-founders? So a lot of times friends co-found a business together. If you've worked together, a lot of times you might have been in the research lab together and became friends because you were working together. I think that kind of a situation is slightly different than if you were like childhood friends. It's risky. There is a very good chance that the relationship will break apart. And so it's risky. It can work, and people do it all the time. But go in with your eyes open and make sure you've worked together before to have a sense for how well you work together. Having a salesperson on the founding team greatly increases your chance of success. So that's something to consider. And the other thing is empower your stars. So there are going to be some people that are so extraordinary at what they do, and they're going to have massive deficiencies in other respects. So They don't do any paperwork. They won't give reviews of the people who report to them. They won't show up at work on time. They won't wear shoes to meetings. I'm not going to name names, but maybe I had an employee like that. But that's okay. If they are superstars and they are doing something that nobody else can do, that's fine. Fill in the holes with somebody else. Take somebody else to the meeting. That's okay. What you don't have space for is the nice person who was your childhood friend, who really doesn't like to work very hard, or really nice person, but it just isn't contributing that much. There's no space for people like that on the team. You don't have the resources to accommodate that. So those are the players that you need to they need to find their place in the world, and you need to find somebody else to fill that spot. Another mistake is frenetic activity. You need to focus. You can't do everything. There are a million things to do every single day, and you will not get to all of them. So you need to prioritize. Prioritizing is one of the most important things that you will do. You may only get one thing done in a day, but if that's the most important thing, then that's what you should do. And I remember being at the dentist and seeing the dentist and being so jealous, because I was thinking, wow, at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, he's going to turn off the light, he's going to lock his door, and he's going to go home, and he's done. Like, there's nothing else he can do. When you're doing a startup, it's not like that. There are a million things hanging over your head, and it never goes away. You're never done. There's always more to do. But you just need to prioritize, plow through. All that matters is your results, not your activity, and really keep your eye on the prize. Time to market is what is absolutely critical. So be direct, be transparent with your people, and then drive toward your milestones. The next step is fundraising. So your fundraising, you want to consider all your fundraising options. So it starts generally with your friends and family, moves on to angels, which could be like $10,000 to $1 million. And there are equity crowdfunding options. Government grants are a great source. I've worked with several startups who have raised over $10 million in government grants. And you don't give up equity for this. So it's a really, really, really good deal. Strategic investors, don't overlook strategic investors. And finally, venture capital, which is what everyone talks about. So you should not underestimate fundraising. This is a full-time job for the CEO during the period that they're fundraising. It's a huge job. It takes dedication, time, research, and energy. And it means you will face rejection and failure all the time. And that's okay. You need to be okay with that. But definitely do your research on potential investors ahead of time. One thing I see startups do is that they just do this scatter shot, asking everyone in the world for if they want to invest. And you're just opening yourself up to more rejection. Why do that? Do your research. Find the investors that are investing in your space, in startups at your stage, in the amount of money that you want to raise. So find those and then pitch to them. You don't need 100 more rejections from other investors that are not remotely relevant to what you're doing. And it's important to learn from every rejection. The most important thing you want to really focus on is it the pitch or is it the fundamentals of the business? The thing with investors is they're generalists and they are seeing a lot of things out in the marketplace. And so they can give you very good strategic advice. And so find out, like maybe they've seen 24 startups doing exactly what you're doing. If that's the case, you should know that. And you should understand where your technology lies relative to those. So make sure you're getting information from them from every meeting. You don't want to waste the opportunity. One mistake that people make in pitching is they make it confusing. They use industry acronyms to sound smart. They make complicated diagrams. I don't know why PowerPoint does these stupid diagrams that add zero information, and they really irritate me. They just add arrows, and it doesn't tell you anything. Really think about, like, what information are you trying to convey? Don't just try to put some diagram up there. Do not put entire paragraphs in tiny fonts that nobody can read. Don't demand a confidentiality agreement. Investors won't give you that. And don't add AI, even if it's totally irrelevant to your business. This is not well worded. You can add AI if your business is AI, but don't add it just because AI is hot these days. Instead, you want to simplify your pitch. What's the problem you're solving? What's your solution? Not how, but like, what is it? Remove acronyms, remove diagrams that don't add information, limit the number of your words to like 10, maybe 20. Quantify your customer value proposition. Practice your pitch. Practice it with people who have never heard it before, and ask them to repeat back to you what they got out of it. And what you'll learn is that they didn't understand at all what you were talking about, or they don't remember, or they got lost in detail, and they really don't have any sense for the big picture. So what you realize is that you have to keep it super, super simple. And then make sure you find out, if there's no interest, was it the pitch or was it the business? So I recommend going to this very simple format of an elevator pitch. We make blank, which is your product, for blank, who is your customer, to blank. What is the problem that you're solving? So an example is, we make 3D printers for design engineers to make fast, inexpensive prototypes. It's very simple and clear. Put it on your first slide. What I see people do is they have a pitch deck, and they're talking about all the macro trends and how this is solving great problems in the world, but you don't know what they do. Is it software? Is it hardware? Is it materials? Like, what is it? So just do something very simple like this. Another mistake is not pitching to strategic investors. Who is invested in your success? It could be suppliers, it could be customers, it could be distributors. Our distributor invested, our potential customer invested. And strategic investors are great because they don't want to take control over your company. They're interested in your success. I mean, I had a great experience with our strategic investors. And they also give you credibility with other potential investors, because if they see, wow, this customer invested in your company, so they know the market and they must see some real opportunity here, and therefore I want to invest, because other investors are not going to be experts. Yeah.
Trade shows. Could you talk a little bit more about your sales funnel and how you came across possibly strategic investors?
Yeah, so the question is about sales funnel and how did we find strategic investors. So one of our strategic investors was a potential customer that had invested in the MIT technology way back in the early days. And we knew what they were trying to do, and we felt that we could meet the needs that they had originally set out to do. And so I reached out to them, and they invested. The distributor was our Japanese distributor, Toyota Tsusho, and they approached us. They said, I think in Japan, they very much like these strong relationships, and so they said, they asked if they could invest, and we did. Our sales funnel did start often with trade shows. We did a lot of other marketing as well, and I'll talk about it in a later slide. Venture capital offers opportunity, cash to grow the business, advice, connections, and validation. It may be necessary. Some startups have to grow fast or else they'll fail, and they require huge capital. So Uber would be an example. But you need to know the risks of venture capital. You need to make sure you're going to put that money to work. Some businesses can't grow at the pace that VCs need. You may lose control of the business. And a higher valuation will raise the bar. So then it becomes harder to generate a return for the next round. So you just want to be aware of these risks. The next is minimum viable product. So you can see we went from the original proof of principle to our alpha machine to our final product that we released, our beta. And there's me with our twin, one of the twins. I had twin daughters in October, and then we shipped our first product in December. So it was a very busy time. One mistake with minimum viable product is seeking perfection. By the time it's perfect, it's too late. You just want to get something that works into the customer's hands. Speak with the customers every day, try to sell the product, and be aware that you can't please everyone. So find a niche where you are satisfying a problem. The next, we're getting to sales. So one mistake is not considering all business models, and innovation in business model can be key. So Google did this. Consider your ease of sale, profitability, and capital requirements. Certain business models make it easier sale, but then they require more capital. So in the interest of time, I'll talk to you about possible 3D printer models. So we could have sold the equipment, that is what we did. But other models we considered were the Xerox model, where we charge per page, so basically per unit volume. Another is the HP model, sell the equipment at a loss, and then a very high price for our recurring materials and print heads. Another is to lease it at a fixed monthly rate. Another would be hardware as a service, which would be an upfront fee plus a recurring charge for software. And finally, what other 3D printing startups have done is to sell parts instead of selling the equipment. One mistake startups make is pricing their product too low. So you want to quantify your value proposition and differentiate so that you can get premium pricing. Our 3D printer had many revenue streams. We sold the equipment, we sold the powder materials, we served installation, sold service, which was installation and maintenance, and we sold software. And those had very different profitability. Our equipment was decent margin, our materials were fantastic margin, our service was terrible margin, but we wanted our customers to have service contracts so their machines would be running. And then our software was similar to the equipment. If we had sold parts, it would have had much higher capital requirements, and we didn't have the capital to do that. So that's why we had to sell the equipment. But we also, our technology was better suited for that. Market size really matters, and so 20 to 100 million is a good market size and bigger. And this was how we quantified how big our market size was. We started with the number of 3D CAD seats, chopped it by half. You know, did they have money for 3D printer? How many users could share a 3D printer? And that got us to a number, and how much penetration of the market. Sale price of 40,000 gives us an equipment market size of $1 billion. So this is a way to do it. You want to get to the number of users, multiply by your price to get to a market size. Our marketing involved cold calls, direct mail, lots of trade shows, seminars. We gave away free parts because we wanted to show to the market that our parts were inexpensive, they were easy to make, very fast. And then during the sales cycle, we made one free custom part for our customers. And this was really important during the sales process. When they saw their own part, as opposed to a generic part, that shifted the conversation dramatically. A lot of potential customers said, oh, we can see on the screen. No, no, no. And we'd insist, let us just make your part and see what you think. And we would make their part, and they would say, well, haha, this wall thickness is too thin. Your 3D printer isn't very good. And we'd say, hey, that's your data. Go back and check your 3D CAD data. So they would see things that they hadn't seen before. Or they would say, wow, this remote, the buttons are in an uncomfortable place. They only could feel that by having a 3D printed part in their hand. We did a lot of case studies. So Motorola was one of our customers, and we showed how they could reduce their development time and lower their cost and get their products to market faster. So this was a cell phone that Motorola released after designing it using our 3D printers. Another mistake is a focus on buzz. You want to focus on your customers, not on awards. Track your customers, not your social media and your press. The value that you're creating is in your revenue, in your growth, and in your profits. And I've worked with companies that were able to generate a lot of buzz, and they had really cool marketing, blah, 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 but they just couldn't get enough customers. And at the end of the day, you're just going to go out of business if you don't have enough customers. So you really need to focus on your revenues. Selling is a process. You want to talk to your customers every day. A big decision you're going to have to make is whether you're going to sell through direct sales or through a distribution network. And you want to look at your cost of customer acquisition. How expensive is it for you to acquire a new customer? And finally, quantify the value proposition to your customer. They want to know if you're selling to another business that you're going to increase their revenues and or lower their costs. That's what they care about. So here's a sample marketing. This was showing products that you would encounter every day, the customers that make those products, and these are all customers of Z Corporation that they first saw the light of day on a 3D printed prototype made on a Z Corp 3D printer. So this was one way that we were communicating all the different markets that we could serve. Another mistake is focusing only on growth. You do need to track your cash because companies run out of business when they run out of cash. So look at how long and what's the investment required to get to revenues and to profitability. Talk with your customers every day. Are they in pain? How much would they pay for a solution to their problem? You want to be optimistic, but you don't want to be blind. You might do everything and still fail due to externalities, and I've talked to entrepreneurs who have been in that situation. But learn from your failures, do things differently. When you get new information, remake your old decisions. It's a rocky road. Doing a startup, any entrepreneur you talk to, it's a very rocky road. But there are going to be beautiful surprises. But keep in mind that the time and cost is probably going to be at least double what you think. Focus on the key elements for success. So you want defensible product differentiation based on your technology. You want a strong, diverse team, and that's going to require constant work to make sure your culture is still strong, make sure you're working well with the team, you're nurturing your team members, and then have lots of customer interaction to make sure that the product you're developing is actually solving a real need in the marketplace. When you don't know what to do, because you often will feel like you're in this fog of unknown, you have too many decisions to make, too many directions to go into, not enough information, and everyone is telling you something different, your North Star is your core. And so be aware of what your core is. And so this is what sets you apart. It's what you do better than anybody else, what would be hard for anybody else to replicate, and it enables your competitive advantage. So I'll give you some examples. In Z Corp, it was our intellectual property, our material science, but others would be like for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Uber, it's the network effect. So they've built these huge networks that are very hard for anybody else to replicate. It could be customer service. It can be the user experience and interface. In one startup I talked to, this is so interesting. They make inexpensive software for small companies to do their HR. And the founder explained to me that their secret sauce is the SEO terms that they use to acquire new customers. And that's what sets them apart, what allows them to grow as fast as they've grown. And then customer service. This could be like processes that you've developed or a culture that you've developed around customer service. Don't believe exit is nirvana. You will live on past exit, and your startup will live on. So what I mentioned before, it's all about having impact. Entrepreneurship is rewarding. You want to hire people who complement your strengths, Everything is murky. You have to be comfortable with that, but persevere. It's hard. This is not a time for work-life balance. Find something you believe in because it's a long road. Have it be consistent with your values and something that you really think is important. Celebrate your milestones and have fun. This is one of my biggest regrets at Z Corp, is that when we would reach a milestone and something big would happen, we would just drive on to the next thing. And take a moment. You don't have to take a week. Don't take a week, but take a moment. What is that? Okay. Startups are risky, but controlling your own destiny is super enriching. So as Steve Jobs said, it's more fun to be a pirate than to join the Navy. So that's about it. Thank you.